Okay, let's jump right in. In today's explainer, we're mapping out the core foundational concepts of Vedic philosophy, pulling straight from our source material, the Bhagavad-gītā. Now, if you're tuning in, you probably already know how profound this text is, but we're going to look closely at how it actually structures its unique perspective on reality, knowledge, and, well, existence itself. We're breaking down some pretty massive ideas into clear, digestible pieces, starting right with the very nature of the universe. So here is our roadmap for today. We've got 4 main stops. First up, the complete whole. Then we'll hit flaws of human perception. After that, we're contrasting temporary versus eternal worlds. And finally, we'll wrap the whole thing up by really defining Sanātana-dharma. Let's get to it. Starting off with part 1, the complete whole. The core argument here is that the phenomenal world we're living in is absolutely not an accident. It originates from a perfectly complete source. To get a handle on this, Sankhya philosophy, which is a massive part of this Vedic framework, gives us a very specific number, 24. It outlines that this material universe is made up of exactly 24 elements, but the key takeaway isn't just memorizing that number. It's the idea that these elements are completely, perfectly adjusted to provide literally every resource needed for the universe to maintain itself. The text argues there's nothing extra floating around and absolutely nothing is missing. Because it originates from a complete whole, this temporary manifestation we call the universe is 100% self-sufficient for as long as it's meant to exist. Now, to understand how this philosophy views its own authority on these matters, we've got to talk about infallibility. The text proposes that Vedic knowledge is completely perfect. And to illustrate this, it uses a pretty wild, almost shocking analogy: cow dung. Now, objectively speaking, cow dung is animal stool, right? And normally, strict Vedic rules say touching animal stool makes you impure. But here is the massive plot twist. The scripture explicitly declares cow dung to be a purifying antiseptic agent. It sounds completely counterintuitive to everyday human logic, but followers accept it simply because the Vedic injunction says so. And the argument being made here is that modern science actually later verified those antiseptic properties. It's used as proof that Vedic wisdom sits way above human doubt or simple trial and error mistakes. Moving on to part 2, flaws of human perception. So if the source text is considered absolutely perfect, what exactly happens when we, highly flawed humans, try to figure it all out on our own? Well, the text doesn't pull any punches here. It explicitly states that independent human research is fundamentally flawed because we're dragging around 4 specific defects. Number 1, we are sure to commit mistakes. I mean, we've all been there, right? Number 2, we are invariably illusioned. 3, we literally have a built-in tendency to cheat others. And 4, we are limited by our own imperfect senses. Because of these 4 major roadblocks, the source argues that we cannot possibly just research our way into all-pervading absolute truth. Our primary tools, our minds and our physical senses, are just fundamentally compromised from the start. So what's the workaround? If we can't trust our flawed senses, the solution presented is parampara. Think of it as a perfect top-down chain of disciplic succession. It starts at the very top, directly from the Supreme Lord, who is totally free from all those material defects. From there, it passes to Brahma, the first created being, and then cascades down through an unbroken succession of spiritual masters, finally reaching a student. A classic example being Arjuna in the Bhagavad-gītā. The text really stresses that Arjuna receives this knowledge completely intact, no contradictions, no deletions, and absolutely no inserting his own whimsical personal interpretations. It's a pure, uncorrupted data transmission directly from a perfect source, completely bypassing human flaws. Armed with that top-down knowledge, the goal is to actually elevate human life. We aren't meant to just blindly toil away like ordinary animals. The text categorizes literally everything we do, our daily activities, and even the foods we eat, into 3 distinct modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. To rise above our flawed, mundane perception, the Gita says we have to actively choose activities and eatables that sit strictly within the mode of goodness. Doing this purifies our existence. It shifts us away from uncontrolled destructive habits, like killing animals just to satisfy our taste buds, which the text argues violates the laws of nature. And it moves us toward a highly intentional, elevated way of living. All right, part 3, temporary versus eternal worlds. So why do we need to purify our existence in the first place? Simply put, to reach a destination completely outside of this physical universe. To grasp what that destination is, we first have to face the hard reality of the world we're currently in. There is a strict, completely inescapable 5-step cycle governing absolutely every material manifestation. Step 1, it comes into being. Step 2, it stays for some time. Step 3, it produces byproducts. Step 4, it dwindles. And finally, Step 5, it vanishes entirely. The text points out that whether you're looking at a piece of fruit on your counter or the human body itself, this law is total. Everything material is strictly on a ticking clock. And that sets up a truly stark contrast. On one side, you have our material world, totally temporary, dwindling, and guaranteed to vanish. But on the exact opposite side is what's called the Sanatana sky. This realm is described as eternal, indestructible, and entirely spiritual in nature. It is fundamentally a completely different reality from the one we wake up in every single day. But here's the thing. Our connection to that eternal realm is actually deeply personal. The Supreme Lord, speaking as Krishna in the Bhagavad-gītā, explicitly claims, "I am the Father of all." This philosophy asserts that all living entities, no matter what kind of temporary material body they might be wearing right now, are essentially his children. And because of this incredibly intimate relationship, the text explains that the Lord actually descends in various incarnations or sends confidential servants for one specific reason, to reclaim these fallen, conditioned souls and bring them all the way back to that eternal association in the Sanatana sky. Which brings us perfectly to part 4, defining Sanātana-dharma. This is where all these threads we've been talking about converge to reveal our ultimate core purpose. Let's break the term down, starting with Sanatana. As explained by the great Vedic authority Ramanujacharya, the Sanskrit word Sanatana literally means that which has neither beginning nor end. It has absolutely no boundaries in time. Because of that, the text argues that anything truly Sanatana cannot be sectarian. It's not locked to a specific group of people or a certain geographical region or a particular era in human history. It is 100% universally applicable to all living entities. Now let's look at the second half. Dharma. This word gets loosely translated as religion all the time, but the text asks us to really dig into the actual Sanskrit root. Dharma absolutely does not mean a belief system. It means an essential, defining characteristic. It is that which is constantly existing with a particular object. The classic analogy used here is fire. What are the constant, inseparable companions of fire? Heat and light. Without heat and light, the word fire literally has no meaning. So heat and light are the actual dharma of fire. And wow, does this reveal a massive conceptual difference? In English, the word religion conveys an idea of faith, right? It's something you can change or swap out like a jacket. You could adopt one belief system today and consciously decide to adopt a totally different one next week. But Sanātana-dharma? That is entirely different. It refers to the eternal, unchangeable function of the living entity. It is not something you merely believe in, it is what you fundamentally are and what you eternally do. Think about it like this. Just as you cannot remove liquidity from water or take the heat out of fire, Vedic wisdom argues that this eternal function cannot possibly be stripped away from the soul. It is permanently, intrinsically built into every single living being in the universe. Sure, your physical body is going to go through that brutal 5-step material cycle and eventually vanish, but the living entity itself, it's never born, and it never dies. It continues to exist, and its Sanātana-dharma continues to exist right along with it. So, we arrive at the core realization of this whole explainer. I want you to really ask yourself, if your physical body, your career, your family ties, and all your temporary roles in this world are strictly governed by material nature and destined to eventually vanish, what is the unchangeable, constant nature that remains eternally with you? Because reviving that very function is considered the absolute perfection of human life. Thanks for joining me for this explainer on the source material. It's a truly fascinating framework, and I hope it leaves you with a profound new lens through which to view your own existence.